Hey, it's Jason here. I have to admit, I'm a little nervous about this one today. It's a longer solo episode. I haven't done one of those in a while, so you'll have to bear with me as I, bumble my way through this. But I had to put this one together for you because I'm a sucker for those lists that come out at the end of the year. It's like, the best places to go in the coming year. And I thought, well, let's take all of these lists I've been wanderlusting over. I took 6 of them and 187 total destinations on these lists. And I pulled out 14 to highlight today. 14 best of the best places to go in 2025. And yeah, this is all subjective, but tune in because I thought this would be a great opportunity to just riff on some destinations I've been to. Some that I haven't, of course, or many that I haven't on this list. Share some personal stories from the road. Highlight some common themes I noticed among these lists. And to dream along with you. Hopefully sneak in some ideas for your future trips. You're going to hear today one of my travel regrets, one of the coolest and perhaps nerdiest attractions I've visited that had me completely mesmerized. And this is one place I think it makes going to this city worth it just for this one place. Highlight some of the destinations that appeared on more than one list that caught my eye. I'm going to share a lovely slice of coastline you might want to visit before it explodes for reasons I'll share in the show. The only U.S. state I have not visited and why you should consider heading there this year. What a 4 to 5 day, quote, why not trip is and why you might book one after hearing this. A travel recommendation I've heard from various guests over the years and something I have a very strong desire to do. A sexy Scandinavian 2 for the price of 1 destination. I'll get into that. A place where you don't decide what to play on the jukebox. This is a funny story from the road I've never shared. I'll share this one. And at the end, I'll share perhaps the best way to reverse engineer your travels this year. You're also going to hear about a colonial city, which is a great place to learn a language, as well as a gateway to another amazing area, a pleasant surprise, and much more fun coming your way in this one. So buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. And this is going to be a fun one. We're going to have a blast. Get ready. I'm going to try to just do this straight through without stopping. We're going to see what happens here as we go. You're going to hear all the bloops and blunders. And, of course, these destinations that I'm bringing to you. This is just a fun chance to explore some destinations and some ideas for your upcoming travels. And I don't know about you, but these lists, they really suck me in. And I've got these lists from the New York Times, Afar Magazine, Wanderlust Magazine, Condé Nast, Nat Geo, and CNN, I believe. I hope I didn't miss one there. Anyway, we're going to go through it list by list. I'm going to pull out some of the destinations that have some of these fun stories associated with them, just places I want to go, and we're going to have a good time. By the way, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, this is almost an audio version of our newsletter. I love to riff on destinations and share some personal stories and various things via our free newsletter, which is at zerototravel.com/newsletter. So you can sign up over there, and I hope you get some value out of this one. Let's dive in, shall we? Okay. First stop, Condé Nast's 25 places to go in 2025 list. I pulled out 3 destinations from this list, one of which is also on the National Geographic list, which we'll get to later. The first one is, drumroll please, Alaska. This is the only U.S. state I haven't visited, and I think after I moved to Norway, for those of you that are new to the show, I live in Norway. I'm originally from the States, but I don't know, because it's maybe a similar latitude and climate and that sort of thing. I haven't gone out of my way to go there. I should have hit it up before. I felt like when it was the last U.S. state for me to visit that I needed to make some kind of dramatic entrance. Like I needed to bike there or hitchhike there or something. So, maybe I sat on it too long. But the reason why I put this destination on here and that you might want to go, and there's an overarching reason as you're thinking about your travels for 2025, is, there is a big trend, of course, a negative trend, I would say, in over-tourism, places getting so crowded. And then with climate change, you think about a place like Rome or some of the traditional sort of very touristed places in Europe and the States, very hot in the summer, lots of crowds. And you see that these shoulder season times, like in the spring or in the fall, for example, in Europe, are even becoming more crowded just because people are trying to avoid the weather. And that's why places like Alaska and Norway, for that matter, Scandinavia, are getting more popular. I think people are realizing, hey, I don't want to be walking around in Rome in August, with my shirt dripping wet with sweat with, millions of other tourists. Why not avoid the hotness and the crowds of the summer destinations and go up north? So that's why I put Alaska on this list. I am going to get up there. By the way, if you're listening to this and you live in Alaska, send me an email. Just tell me some of the things to do. Maybe you can kind of cast the fishing line out there and reel me in. I need to get to Alaska. Okay. By the way, this, I should have mentioned this at the top. This list, you're going to notice there's not a lot of Africa on here because I haven't traveled too much in Africa, unfortunately. So this entire list could have been just Africa, just like my Africa bucket list. But I decided, all right, well, let me throw in some destinations I've been to. Let me throw in a few dream destinations, a few fun stories. And let's not make this like an entire Africa list. I should do just a whole other episode at some point with just Africa because I'm dying to explore more of that continent. Yeah, so I just wanted to preface that if you're wondering, why isn't there more Africa on this list? There is. It's just, it just would have dominated the list if I went too crazy with it. Okay, the second one, this is one of my travel regrets. I shouldn't say that because I don't really have any regrets when it comes to my travels, but you can probably relate to this. When you've been to a place and, there's another place close by and you're like, I've heard so many great things. I've been traveling around for a while now. People keep telling me how great this place is and I really should go. But, you kind of maybe have your plan. Maybe you've met some people. Maybe you just don't have the time. There's various reasons why you didn't end up there. And that is the case for this next destination on the list. And I say it's one of my travel regrets because I was close and I had time. I had 3.5, almost 4 months in South America traveling at this point back in 2008, 2009, concentrated in Patagonia, doing a lot of outdoor adventures and things like that. Very tempted to go to Bolivia. Very tempted. I heard so many things, and that's why Bolivia is on this list. So you've got La Paz, which sits at 4,100 meters. It's apparently the highest capital city in the world. You've got the Salar de Uyuni. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not. The world's largest salt flat. You've probably seen pictures of people out there doing cool trick photos. It's very sort of famous and well known. You got I remember hearing about the world's most dangerous road where you could mountain bike down it, which was really tempting to me at the time I was there. And, amazing people, affordable, amazing culture, a lot of reasons why Bolivia. Well, I was just hearing great things about Bolivia, never made it there. And that's why it's on this list. Okay, the third one, we are going to Africa. And this is one that was also on the Nat Geo list. We're on the Condé Nast list, 25 best places to go now. This one was on the Nat Geo one as well. I will, by the way, at the end, highlight some of the other destinations that I saw on multiple lists, just so you're aware of them. Give a couple honorable mentions as well. And number 3, Tunisia. And, in Condé Nast list, they highlighted Djerba. It's Djerba, Tunisia. And they said, quote, go for a multicultural North African take on Mediterranean island vibes, culinary revivals, street art steeped in history. All of that I was vibing with. I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool. And Nat Geo was highlighting more of Tunisia's intact archaeological ruins. The fact that they have a lot of archaeological ruins to explore. It was once part of the Roman Empire. And so, there's a diversity there that, I don't know, was intriguing to me, this idea of exploring this country and a country that I really don't know a lot about, which is always fun to just show up and kind of dive in and see what you can soak up and learn. So there you go. That's my number 3. Okay. Number 4 is an area that I have been, and it's about to, according to this article anyway, it's about to explode perhaps. It's about to definitely change in terms of your experience on the ground as a traveler. And I wanted to bring it up because I've been there and I got the vibe, and I didn't get to explore further up this coast, but I didn't even know this coastal area had a name. I just remember trying to find a place that I could just spend a week and slow down and surf and just kind of journal and think. And I was at like as his life goes, you have certain parts of your life where there's changes are afoot. And it's nice to have that space, and it's nice to kind of explore that when you're out on the road. And I was a solo trip, and this is the Emerald Coast in Nicaragua, starting in San Juan del Sur, which is a backpacker hub and points north. And as they said in this article, quote, much of this area is poised to undergo something of a transformation with the impending arrival of the Costanera Highway. Set to be completed in 2025, it will connect over 200 miles of Pacific coast and radically improve access, end quote. Now, you know what happens when these coastal areas all of a sudden have easy access. The infrastructure is coming, the developers, the influx of tourists. It's just, the harder a place is to get to, the longer it's going to sort of stay a bit more rustic, perhaps a bit more chill. And I remember when I stayed in Playa Maderas specifically, it was about 30 minutes-ish north of the backpacker hub in San Juan del Sur, which was much cheaper to stay in just because there's more options, more places to stay, more conveniences. This wasn't too far, but I thought, would it be nice to just be at this beach town, completely slow down and not have any of those conveniences, just like have one restaurant to go to and, one place to rent surfboard or whatever. And that's exactly what I did. I stayed there for a week, and it was just such a lovely experience there by myself. What was my schedule? I mean, I'd, walk down in the morning, surf, walk back up the hill, have a delicious breakfast, maybe do some writing, maybe lay in the hammock and play some guitar, think who knows, whatever. Chit chat with the people that work there, just hang out. And it was just this, not much nightlife. Everything that I did there just took place at the hostel. We had like communal dinners and kind of group things like that. But I was mostly just kind of to myself and just chatting with people randomly, that kind of vibe. And it was so wonderful. And because even though it was only 30 minutes from San Juan del Sur, you were like a world away from sort of the backpacker hub, and you were just on your own, like it wasn't an island, but island time type of thing. So I'm just highlighting this because I loved that area. And there was such a contrast after flying in and being in Managua with my buddy who was working down there building stoves for people. And yeah, he has got, he works for this incredible organization called Trees, Water, People in Colorado. And, we got to hang out with some of his friends and local Nicaraguans there and, go to some of the bars and some of the hangout places in the capital city. But a very busy city, quite chaotic, saw some very depressing stuff. Like there were a lot of younger folks like addicted to sniffing glue. So they'd walk around this market with these like jars full of glue, just sniffing them and getting high. Man, there was some depressing stuff. So then to go from like sort of all of that, that barrage of humanity, I guess you could say, and then to just get out to the coast and kind of unwind. It was just, the whole thing made for an interesting trip. But this area, the Emerald Coast of Nicaragua, if the highway gets done this year, I mean, it's only going to get built up more and more. So I really wanted to highlight this because if you've been thinking about, hey, I want to go to Nicaragua. I want to explore there. I want to check out some of the beaches, might be a good time to get there before. And as a broader theme, that's something to think about as you're planning your travels as well. Something I try to think about as well. Are these places, when you visit a place, you're visiting that place in a moment of time, right? You can't ever capture it in that moment of time again, which makes every trip special. Even if you're going back to New York City for the 30th time, it's a different place than, even the last time you were there. In some ways, it might not be as evident, like a highway being built through, a rugged coastal area. Those changes can be big. But if there are certain places you want to experience and the moment of time for that is now, for whatever reason, bump those places up. That's all I'm saying. Okay. We're going to move on to our next list. I just pulled one from this list, Wanderlust Magazine. We had the founding editor on the show pretty recently. They have some great stuff over there, and they have their Good to Go list, which I like. That was a unique name for a list. Good to Go list for 2025. And I just pulled one off of there, which is one of perhaps the number one place that I've been that I want to go back to, because I was only there for a handful of days. And man, do I want to go back. Japan. Japan was on multiple lists. You've probably seen it everywhere. Tourism seems to be exploding. Couple things I want to highlight about Japan. I'll tell you about my number one bucket list item for Japan. But first, did you know these are the types of things I put in the newsletter as I hear about these things, if you haven't signed up over there. They have a digital nomad visa now. You can stay for up to 6 months in Japan with this visa. This is a first for them. And yes, you have to be making around $65,000 a year to qualify, but you're eligible for families and spouses and children can be a part of this. But the idea that if you're a digital nomad or you have a remote, you don't have to be a digital nomad. You just need to have a business you can run remotely. And you make X amount of dollars. There are these nomad visas, and the fact that Japan now has one that can allow you to stay up to 6 months is pretty awesome. So you might want to check that out. I can link up to that in the show notes. And my bucket list item, I have many places. Of course, I want to see Kyoto and go to all kinds of different places around Japan. But I actually have a folder with some paper articles and things that I rip out. If I find something I want to do, I just stuff it in a folder. Could be like a dream folder or whatever. Steal that idea if you want. And I remember reading an article about the Kumano Kodo. It's an ancient pilgrimage. It's Japan's ancient pilgrimage network. And I found their official website. I'll just read you a little bit so you can catch the vibe. They say for over 1,000 years, people from all levels of society, including retired emperors and aristocrats, have made the arduous pilgrimage to Kumano. These pilgrims used a network of routes now called the Kumano Kodo, which stretched across the mountainous Kii Peninsula. The walk itself was an integral part of the pilgrimage process as they undertook rigorous religious rites of worship and purification. Walking the ancient Kumano Kodo is a fantastic way to experience the unique cultural landscape of Kumano's spiritual countryside. In July of 2004, the Kumano Kodo pilgrimage routes were registered as UNESCO World Heritage as part of the, quote, sacred sites and pilgrimage routes in the Kii mountain range, end quote, property. So there you go. Just gives you an overview. But translating that, looking at the pictures of this one article, I remember, you got beautiful forests and stony paths and, little places to stay with hot tubs. And it just seemed like, I don't know. I don't know how you put it together logistically. I don't think the walk is, I've seen some things where you can, do like a 6-day itinerary or whatever. So it's not like doesn't have to be a multi-month type of thing. But there are different routes you can take. And so the amount of time you're on the trail can vary. But I love the idea of walking through this spiritual countryside area. And two of my favorite memories from Japan, even though my time there was short in Tokyo, one was sneaking up to the hotel floor. I think we had points for this hotel. I don't remember. It was like one of the big hotels. But the floor was under construction. It was like a no trespassing zone. But my buddy Jim and I snuck up there. And we were on this unfinished hotel floor and overlooking Tokyo, taking pictures of Tokyo. That was cool. And then going to do karaoke, of course. I did my best Bono impression. Where the Streets Have No Name was the song. I queued it up. The guy looked shocked at the length of the intro. It was like a 2-minute intro to the song. I'm like, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. I ran to the bathroom, slicked my hair back with water, put on some sunglasses, came out right when Bono started singing, got a nice round of applause from the Japanese businessmen and women in attendance. And, whether it was a polite round of applause or genuine, I went for it, man. I went full on stage mode, and there were about 6 people there or something, stadium seating, about 6 people watching. I was trying to entertain as if I was a real rock star entertaining 100,000 people, because that's what you do. You got to go for it, right? Especially in karaoke. By the way, fun little prompt. If you want to get in touch, just to give me some feedback on the episode, or you just want to say hi, or you need an excuse to say hi, you can always drop me an email and let me know, what's your go-to karaoke song? Mine was getting jiggy with it for a while, but I remember doing it once in Portland and had brought the whole restaurant to its feet doing the Running Man. But then, the whole Oscar slap thing happened. I don't know. Anyway, we're not getting into that. We're not on this podcast. All right, let's move along. We're not even halfway through this list. I can talk. All right. Afar magazine. I love Afar magazine. They got their 25 places to go. And I pulled out 2 from the United States that I've been to. Mostly because they just have a fun story, and a 1 was just a pleasant surprise. Number 6, Boone, North Carolina. Now, I know it was recently impacted by the hurricane. This is, as they say in the article, quote, from a base in the spirited mountain town, you can hike the trails of 4,946-foot Grandfather Mountain, take in scenic stretches of the Blue Ridge Parkway by car, and go tubing, kayaking, and fishing in the New River. I remember, for me, coming into Boone, North Carolina, it was one of those, I stumbled on it, didn't know anything about it, hidden gem. I love a good mountain town. Love easy access to the nature and the outdoors and hiking and that sort of thing. And, just a small local vibe. And this was a college town as well. And I don't even remember how we ended up there, but somehow we ended up there when I was on tour doing one of these promotional events, and just fell in love with the place. It's just so cool. I remember I got a shirt there, like a bluegrass shirt, and I just loved the town. Thought it was just great. And a funny story, though. I was with my girlfriend at the time, and we went out to eat in one of these local spots, and they had a jukebox there, and she put on, I'm not saying she had the best taste in music. I'm not saying she had the worst. She liked the music that she liked. She put on, I don't even remember what song it was, but it was some kind of probably pop song that you either love or hate, right? But the point is, it was the song she wanted to hear. It was her money, right? She put her money in the jukebox. She put the song on, and she came back to sit down, and one of either the locals or the workers there promptly went to the jukebox and just changed the song. Was like, no, we're not playing this song here. This is the kind of place that plays this song. Yet it was part of the jukebox. I remember just thinking, did they just turn your song off that you paid for? This is crazy. I don't know. It was one of those moments where is this going to turn into, if I make a stink here, if this is what they did, is this going to turn into some kind of brawl? They're going to run us out of town throwing beer bottles at us, that are breaking behind us as we're kicking our heels up, trying to get out, which, by the way, I have had beer bottles thrown at me before on the highway in Texas. That was fun. I mean, I don't know. We didn't say anything, but it was pretty hilarious. It also reminded me of a time when we were in Greece with my wife, and she started eating her sandwich with a fork and knife. I don't know. Europeans do this sometimes. And the waiter came over and pulled the silverware out of her hand and basically said, "No, you're not going to He couldn't speak English, but he just basically shook his finger, like did the finger wag thing, like you don't eat sandwich with fork and knife, not allowed. And so it's like, okay, I guess I'm going to be using my hands. It's just like, I love these random things that happen out on the road. Okay. The second one from the safari list is Oklahoma City. This is my pleasant surprise. The reason why I'm bringing up Oklahoma City, believe it or not, I have spent probably months or at least over a month in Oklahoma City. And the reason why is I used to travel around for a few years. One of the promotional events I did required me to drive a British double-decker bus around the country. And we found these awesome mechanics in Oklahoma City. I mean, to get this bus repaired was one of the biggest challenges of my life, and it was my responsibility as the tour manager, and it broke down all the time. We could only go about 45 miles an hour top speed. And so it was just always a problem. You know, you can't just roll up and order British bus auto parts, a 1972 British bus. They don't have a transmission just sitting around. You have to like get it fixed. And these guys at Freightliner, bless their hearts, they were awesome. This guy, Rick, he was just one of these guys that, you know, you meet these people that are just like a genius at what they do. And if they don't know something, they're, you know, it's not about how much, they're not just showing up for their job or how much they get paid. They like actually love what they do, and they geek out on it to the point where if they can't figure something out, they're going through like, you know, schematics and, you know, trying to understand how it works just for their own self-pleasure, their own curiosity. It had nothing to do with collecting the paycheck. That's the kind of guy that Rick was. Just awesome, laid back, Oklahoma City guy, was just up for the challenge. And so consequently, we ended up making this the home base for the bus, because when we'd come off tour, they would spend, you know, 2 months working on it, fixing it, and getting it into shape. So we were in Oklahoma City a lot and really enjoyed our time there. I'm sure it's changed a ton since I've spent time there, but it sounds like in a good way. I mean, it popped up on this list, and I think, you know, these types of towns that you don't think about going to visit because they're just not the ones that appear on the lists like this often are some of the best towns to spend some time in, because you don't really have any expectations. You don't really know what you're going to find in some ways. Yeah, you can go to the tourist office and check out some of the sites, but it's really just about hanging around, meeting the people. I mean, with travel, can you really go wrong? Like wherever you go, you have the right attitude. You're kind of just open to meeting people and having an experience. Can you really go wrong? I don't know. I don't think so. Okay. Moving on. New York Times, 52 places to go in 2025. Now, this is number 8 on my list. I was here, was it a year and a half ago? About? I think so. I have an aunt and well, they're not my aunt and uncle. They're my wife's aunt and uncle. They live outside of Hamburg, Germany, in a little village called, it's not a small village, but it's a nice college town village called Lüneburg. It's traditional. It's one of those villages that if you ride your bike in, you're just like, oh my God, I'm in a European village. This is so cool, which is what happened the first time I rode my bike from their like sort of farm area, which is only about 15-minute bike ride down a flat path into this Lüneburg village. And it's just so charming. You know, you're riding over this bridge, you got restaurants and places to eat, and, you know, the town square and all the nice stuff. It's a lovely place. That village wasn't on this list, but the town that they live outside of, where this village is located, is Hamburg, Germany. Now, we did go into Hamburg to do some exploring, and our aunt, I'm calling her my aunt too. Her name's Tante. Tante is aunt in Norwegian, and her name's Venka. So I say Tante Venka. Shout out to Tante Venka. She decided to get some tickets and take us to the Miniatur Wunderland. You can probably guess the translation. I don't speak German. Miniature Wonderland. It's a place where it sounds exactly what it's like. They make they have like a whole miniature world, like tiny people, roads, Ferris wheels. This is what I'm thinking in my head. Like, okay, this is just one of those, like, yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be cool. Like, it'll be cool for the kids, Holy crap. This miniature Wonderland is awesome. I mean, you heard my teaser at the top when I said, what I say? I'm scrolling up here in my notes. I said this was my coolest, perhaps nerdiest attraction that had me completely mesmerized. And I mean, you walk into this place, it's so much more than what you could imagine. It's this museum with all these different sections of miniature cities, towns, like soccer stadiums, like a whole amusement park, but it's all moving. They have a working airport where you can watch planes take off. Now, let me just read a little bit from the website so you can get the vibe of this. I mean, you got little trucks driving around, delivering luggage. You have planes coming in and out, pulling out, taking off. This airport took them 150,000 hours of work. It has 40,000 LED bulbs, each of them installed manually. 100 kilometers of electrical wiring. 100 kilometers just for this one installation. 15,000 miniature figures, 1,000 meters of railway tracks, more than 50,000 lines of code, and it cost 4 million euros. I mean, insane. So they have about 250 takeoffs and landings per day and 47 aircrafts. This is just one installation in this place. I mean, you look at Italy, I'm looking on their website now. Italy took six years and 4 million euros to create. I mean, this place is at another level. And you can see the people there that are working. You can see them making the miniature figures, painting them, making all of the miniature models and whatever, cliffs and buildings and all this stuff. It is insanely awesome. So anyway, if you are near Hamburg or you're even going by it, do yourself a favor. If this sounds cool, you want to nerd out with me, stop by the Miniature Wunderland. We'll link up to it. Okay. Number 9, we're getting there. I'm doing this. I'm still talking. It's happening. Okay. Hopefully I haven't stumbled too much. Hopefully you're still here. Should I read a joke from my Dad Jokes for Kids book that my friends gave me just to shake it up? All right, let's do that. What sport can you play on a carpet? Rugby. Okay. Speaking of nerding out. All right, let's see. What do we have? 3 more from the New York Times lists. Number 9, Washington, D.C. It is a great place to travel because not only do you get to see the nation's capital, which is cool in and of itself, but you've got some incredible neighborhoods. I had a buddy that went to Georgetown Law there, and so I've spent, weekends with him going out and seeing local music and that kind of thing. So you got all that stuff that a city offers. But then, of course, as a visitor, you got all of the incredible museums, and all of them or many of them are free. I mean, you got, incredibly moving museums like the Holocaust Museum. You have like the Smithsonian, where you could see things like, movie props from Star Wars. You could see Superman's cape. You could see, I mean, I should have pulled up a list of things that you can see. But, a lot of these museums are free. And it's just a great place to explore. So if you think about staying in a city, you could almost think if you're just going to be going to museum mode and you're going to explore and you're going to see the nation's capital and all it has to offer, and a lot of that stuff's free, perhaps you can afford a little extra for accommodations and things like that. I mean, I've been there many times, and it's just a great place to visit. Yeah, when I was a kid, I almost got run over by a biker, and it was a traumatic event, and my mom freaked out on him and yelled at him on the street. And then we went back to the hotel, and she told me to hold her keys. And as I was walking out of the elevator, I dropped her entire set of keys, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but in 1980 something, keys open everything. You don't have anything electronic that's opening. It fell right down the elevator shaft, which was another freak out moment. And then we had to get like the maintenance people to go into the elevator shaft and find it. Anyway, interesting memories from my time in DC as a kid. Okay, number 10, New Orleans. So many times in New Orleans, not talking Bourbon Street, just late night. It could have been on, one end of Bourbon Street or off Bourbon Street, whatever. Like just wandering in to some random small place where there's a person just ripping it up on the piano. There's a band going nuts. The next day you wake up, you go out to you have your breakfast, you go out to some incredible lunch or dinner with just the best food, Creole, cultural, all kinds of mix of this Caribbean, Southern U.S. I mean, just what an incredible place to go. There's something about New Orleans. Of course, you got the beignets, it's just the people really is what, there's so much soul in this place. The music, the culture, the food, and the people, how resilient they are and how just warm they are. And it's just such a unique, I think, perhaps the most unique city, the most diverse city in many ways in the United States. If you haven't been to New Orleans, of course you see Bourbon Street and all that stuff, but I mean, you get away from that and you get off. There's so much around there, so much happening, so much culture. It's just packed with culture. I mean, it's an incredible place. And I've had the good fortune of spending, multiple weeks there in a row working at Mardi Gras, which was a whole other story. But having time to settle in and get off the beaten path. And, I've taken tour groups there when I was working as a tour guide. It's just such a great place to visit. Okay. Number 11, this is my sexy Scandinavian 2-for-1. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Stockholm is, of course, in Sweden, and they have, I know you know that. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the Stockholm archipelago. I don't know if you know this, Stockholm, just 20 minutes away from the city. They have about 30,000 islands for you to explore, featuring outstanding nature, tasty local cuisine, plenty of opportunities for adventure, including the new, which I found out from the New York Times list, the Stockholm Archipelago Trail. It's a, quote, unique 270-kilometer hiking trail over 20 islands in the Stockholm Archipelago, from Arholma in the north to Landsort in the south. Every section of the trail is unique and can be reached by the public ferry transportation system, a hiking trail that will reach into your soul. Talk about great marketing. I mean, that's from the Stockholm Archipelago Trail.com website. A hiking trail that will reach into your soul? I mean, who doesn't want to visit a hiking trail that will reach into your soul? And I call this a sexy 2-for-1 because think about it. I mean, you could go to Stockholm. I've been to Stockholm. It's just an incredible European city to explore. You can do all the Stockholm city things and have that whole vibe going. And then you can take public transportation and go on some incredible hike or be out in these islands into the nature, exploring, getting off the beaten path. And I can tell you just from living in Norway that what's happening on like that sort of feeling you get on like a smaller island or out on the islands in the summer in Scandinavia, it's sweet. I mean, especially if the weather's cooperating, even if it's not, and you're on this rocky island with forest and it's just kind of quiet and there's a city nearby, but it feels a world away. We have a lot of nice small islands in Oslo as well and around, of course, all over Norway. But, even if we just take public transportation out to one of the local islands right down by the main the main pier, you do in some ways feel a world away, and you get this, you're out in nature, you get this relaxing thing. And I think one of the things I want to do this summer is to do a backpacking trip where where I take my kids and we go hiking and camping. I see a lot of people on the ferries going with their backpacks and just, getting out to these islands and hiking and spending a night or two. And then, you take the ferry back in the morning and have a delicious breakfast in the city. It's a sexy 2-for-1. And if you're looking for that, maybe Stockholm or Oslo, if you come through, could be your place. All right, moving on. We've got 3 more left. All right. We're in National Geographic's Best of the World 2025 list now. This one, I know I've used the word vibe a lot in this show, I've realized, but, there is something about that word that comes with travel, and you know what I mean. I think it's a word that, it's a nice flexible word that people understand and can adapt it to themselves, right? That's why I called this one Choose Your Vibe, because if you go to Antigua, Guatemala, it's this beautiful colonial city, very well known as a great place to study Spanish and to immerse. So I pulled that one off of this list because I've been there and I loved my time there. And it's also a nice gateway to Lake Atitlan, which is about 2 to 3.5 hours away, depending on if you travel by chicken bus or tourist shuttle. It's this lovely lake area surrounded by 3 volcanoes, villages, plenty of things to see and do, plenty of opportunities for hiking, for relaxing. And you can really choose your vibe among these villages because you have, for example, San Pedro, that's more geared towards the nightlife. You have Santa Cruz, which is perhaps just all you do is relax and kind of chill. San Marcos is more of like the hippie vibes. You can read about it online. But if you haven't been to this area, it's a wonderful area. I spent some time there. I even won a Super Bowl betting pool, I think in San Pedro randomly one night when I was there. And so you get a great kind of travel experience. If you have a couple weeks, you're based in the States, let's say, you don't get a lot of vacation, even if it's like a week or 10 days. This is something you could fly down, you could go to Antigua, you could explore the colonial city, and then you could go to this area. And, it's pretty well known on the travel circuit. I mean, you're going to definitely run into other travelers, but you can hire locals to help. You can take you on hikes. I know that there's been some incidents of robberies on hikes and things like that, but you can hire somebody to take you up a volcano. I mean, plenty of opportunities to kind of hire locals and interact with them. And it's just a place I wanted to highlight. So that is a place where you can really choose your vibe. Antigua, Guatemala, leading to Lake Atitlan, which Nat Geo had just Antigua on the site, but I wanted to pull that one out there for you. Okay. CNN's Where to Go in 2025 list. They had 25 recommendations. The one I pulled out is one, there's actually 2 I pulled out because we're down to our number 13 and 14. We're coming to the end of this. This is a travel recommendation I've heard from various guests over the years. And one most recently, Chris Arnady, who has goes and walks in different places around the world. He's not walking around the world, but he loves to show up somewhere and, spend a lot of his time walking and then writing about his experiences. And I said, well, hey man, where's your, you've been walking all over the world. Where's your favorite place to walk? And he said, hands down, it's England. And that is what they had on the CNN list, England's footpaths. So I'll read you a little bit. They said, quote, England might not have the epic mountain trails found in some parts of the world, but just yards from almost every doorstep in the land, there's a hedgerow path wending off into a green tunnel of overhanging trees or onto a romantically wuthering moorland. Popular long-distance routes such as the Panini Way, I don't know if I'm pronouncing any of this correctly, Coast to Coast or South Downs Way, I think I got that one, get attention, but quiet corners of the country have their own waymarked trails. Indeed, anyone armed with an ordnance survey map can create their own, end quote. So England's footpaths, I mean, I've just heard such an incredible place to go walking, to explore, and, the idea of that you could maybe walk from village to village and you could still sleep in comfort if you don't want to camp out. That is something that I think is really appealing, at least to me. And that's why I put it on the list. It's a recommendation I've heard from some guests, and I have a very strong desire to do it myself. to walk some of the paths in England. Okay, last one. This is my why not trip, quote unquote. Maybe you're going to plan your own why not trip after this. Gdansk, Poland. Don't know much about it. I'll explain what the why not trip is thing in a minute. Apparently, this is where World War II began. And so I'm curious about the city. I mean, I would love to see the World War II museum that they have there. But beyond that, I think for me, it's a direct flight from Oslo. It's not too far. And if you're going for a short 4 to 5 day trip, sometimes it's just fun to just go to a new country you've never been to. You don't have to have a litany of special things you want to see or do, and it can just be a random city in that country that you don't know much about. Because why not? That's what this is. You know, my daughter and I'm trying to take my kids on a solo trip and alternate. My son and I went to Estonia, and my daughter's next, and it's her turn, and I was thinking Gdansk, Poland might be a place to go. Because why not? I've never been to Poland. It's a random city I don't know much about, and I'm sure it'll be great. And we'll just get to experience a little bit of Poland for 4 or 5 days. I don't know if we're going to go there, but this idea of just a why not trip. So perhaps you have something nearby, country-wise or city-wise, and you haven't thought much of it. You know, maybe it's not even something that would appear on most lists or something you've thought about, but just like, hey, you know, it could be a staycation thing. I mean, you could just drive there, just be like, hey, let's go over here. Why not? Do we have to make it a big thing? Why not? Let's just go. So there you go. The idea for a why not trip. Okay. Now that was the list. How did I do? I hope there weren't too many bloopers and blunders in there. I'm not going to listen back to this. So I fear listening back to this, then I'll start getting in and being like, oh, I wish I said this here and that. It is what it is. Let me know how you enjoyed this one. I don't record solo episodes like this very often, but I'm more than happy to. It was fun hanging out with you like this. And if you want me to do more, drop me a note, jason@zerototravel.com, and let me know. Another reason why I wanted to do this destination is not only that I think it was fun, just a fun exercise to go through and kind of pull out the best of these best of lists. But also, we're going to be doing a lot more destination stuff this year. I've got already a bunch of destination-themed episodes in the can. And so if you're looking for more destination stuff from Zero to Travel, it's coming. And, you know, my focus really is not to cover the main things. In fact, when I work with the guests, I tell them, hey, we want, like, our audience, we want the sort of off the beaten path stuff. Like, it's okay to talk about some of the really known stuff. Like, there's certain stuff you're just going to see that you can't miss, right? If you go to Rome, you're probably going to go see the Sistine Chapel. But, you know, what about some of the other things? Can we just make this list a little different than most of the lists out there? Like, because you can go on and you can read the top 10 things to do in X, Y, or Z city, and we can find that. But I want to make it different on the podcast, and I want people that are experts in these particular destinations to share why they're sharing what they're sharing and what will make it really cool. And so I've heard some really cool stuff that you're going to hear in the coming months that's coming your way. So be on the lookout for some more destination-themed episodes. I hope that gets you excited. I'm certainly excited to bring them to you. Okay. A couple things to wrap up, and then I got this, perhaps the best way to reverse engineer your travels this year. First, I just want to highlight some of the places that were on more than one list that caught my eye. I mentioned Tunisia. There was Kazakhstan, various places in India, of course, Bolivia. Greenland was on many lists. I think that was, you know, a lot for the same reason. Excuse me, hurry up before the ice melts kind of thing. Place to go visit, of course, Stockholm, and then some honorable mentions, just places that caught my eye that I really want to visit. Cuba, always been a place I wanted to see. Faroe Islands, between Iceland and Norway, not too far from me. That one's within reach. Tanzania, Azerbaijan, sorry. Yeah, I made this whole episode, and here we are, botching it at the end. Okay. Azerbaijan, I don't know. I think I'm getting it. Okay. I didn't prep a quote. Let's see if we got anything in the quote drawer. We do. I'll pull something out of there. First, perhaps the best way to reverse engineer your travels this year. Our friends at Moon Guidebooks, I found an article by them when I was searching this. It was their best places to travel by month. And, even though this article was written in 2017, I mean, it's still relevant because it's based on weather, right? And sometimes that's really the driving force, depending on what you want to do. So you can always search the month that you are able to travel. So if you're able to travel in October or April or whatever, instead of searching like sort of randomly in places you want to go, you can also search, best places to travel in April and why, and kind of reverse engineer it that way. Just some food for thought I wanted to share. I can link up to that article as well. Okay. I'll leave you with this quote I just pulled out of the quote drawer from Lao Tzu, who said, "To hold, you must first open your hand. Let go. To hold, you must first open your hand. Let go." Beautiful. That's it. That's a wrap. It was fun. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.